Imagine receiving the keys to a major American airport tomorrow. Aircraft, passengers, parking garages, restaurants, and rental cars all appear to generate money around one protected asset. From the terminal window, the business looks almost unfair. Every landing, gate, parking space, meal, advertisement, and hotel room seems connected to another payment. It resembles a monopoly with jet engines. Scarce land, captive traffic, long-lived infrastructure, and multiple revenue streams converging on one seemingly fortunate airport owner. But the aircraft are not yours. The airlines are not yours. The tickets are not yours. And the passengers are not ordinary customers you control. Even the system guiding aircraft through the sky sits largely outside the airport owner's direct authority, despite depending on the runway and terminal network below. What the owner controls is the platform underneath: runways, taxiways, terminals, gates, baggage systems, roads, parking, utilities, contracts, and the commercial access linking them. That platform is difficult to reproduce. A rival airport needs land, approvals, airspace, roads, enormous capital, and a remarkably patient development calendar beside population demand. This scarcity creates real economic power. Airlines, tenants, vehicles, and travelers must coordinate through infrastructure that cannot be duplicated quickly or moved somewhere else nearby. Yet the same asset carries fixed obligations: safety, staffing, maintenance, emergency readiness, capital replacement, and reliable operation, whether passenger traffic is strong or weak. Debt adds another claim. Bondholders and lenders are paid before the owner can treat the remaining airport cash as a genuinely flexible economic reward. Some airport money is also restricted by contracts, funding rules, or project commitments, so visible cash may exist without becoming freely distributable owner cash. The passenger sees a toll booth attached to a monopoly. The owner sees a leveraged utility that must keep operating before anyone celebrates the margin. Billions may pass through an airport without belonging to the airport itself, because airlines, tenants, agencies, and contractors each retain their own separate revenue. The useful question is not how much money circulates. It is how much remains after operating costs, debt, capital renewal, reserves, and contractual restrictions. In the United States, most important commercial airports are owned by cities, counties, states, port authorities, or specialized public airport authorities rather than private individuals. Many operate as enterprise systems, collecting airport revenue, issuing debt, signing leases, and managing capital obligations within a financially separate organization dedicated to the airport. Private capital still enters, but the word ownership becomes slippery because land title, operating control, commercial rights, and investment duties can belong to different parties. A private company may receive a long-term concession to operate the entire airport, while the public sponsor continues owning the land and supervising public obligations. Another company may hold only a management contract, earning fees for operating the airport without receiving the full upside or carrying every capital risk. Component concessions are more common. Private operators may control parking, rental cars, retail, cargo facilities, terminal services, or other individual profit pools inside the airport. These structures separate legal title from economic control, so the party named as owner may not control pricing, investment timing, operating decisions, or distributable cash. The Federal Airport Partnership Program allows approved private ownership, management, leasing, and development structures, but every transaction remains governed by detailed public obligations and federal review. Whole airport privatization remains rare because transferring an airport means reallocating contracts, capital commitments, regulatory duties, and political risk, not merely transferring buildings and pavement. As of February 2026, the federal program listed only 2 approved airports, illustrating how unusual complete private airport transactions remain across the United States. A concession agreement may grant operating revenue while requiring service standards, capital improvements, reserves, insurance, and specific asset conditions throughout the entire contract term. The public sponsor may retain the land, while airlines preserve rate protections, and the private operator directly carries construction, operating, traffic, and financing risk. Contract duration becomes critical because parking equipment may repay quickly, while terminals, utility systems, and runway projects may require decades to recover their capital. Before valuing the airport, map who owns the land, sets rates, approves projects, receives revenue, funds repairs, and ultimately bears every end-of-term obligation under the contract. Until those rights and duties are mapped, owning an airport is merely a glamorous phrase hiding a very long, detailed, and economically binding contract. A runway is the airport's most recognizable feature, but economically it is only one link inside a much larger and more expensive operating chain. The airfield includes runways, taxiways, aprons, safety areas, lighting, drainage, and aircraft stands, all maintained together so every movement remains usable and safe for owners. Runway capacity creates value only when aircraft can arrive, taxi, park, unload, reload, and depart through the rest of the airport system without delay. The passenger system adds terminals, gates, boarding bridges, security queues, baggage halls, circulation corridors, and every service that turns aircraft capacity into passenger throughput. Behind the terminal sits another airport: power, water, cooling, communications, access control, fuel support, maintenance shops, fire stations, and protected service roads beneath it. Outside, parking, rental cars, access roads, hotels, cargo buildings, hangars, and undeveloped land expand the airport from transport infrastructure into commercial real estate around it. The ownership unit also includes airline agreements, tenant leases, concession contracts, debt covenants, federal obligations, environmental commitments, and future development rights that shape control. This is why airport capacity is never one simple number. Every major subsystem can become the constraint that limits traffic, revenue, and owner cash. An airport may have ample runway capacity but too few gates, leaving aircraft waiting while expensive pavement remains technically available but economically underused during peak periods. It may have enough gates but an undersized baggage system, turning luggage processing rather than aircraft movement into the true limit on growth and revenue. A terminal can process passengers efficiently while congested roads, parking shortages, or rental car bottlenecks prevent those passengers from reaching flights or leaving smoothly every day. The limiting component changes by hour and condition. Gates during peaks, de-icing in winter, baggage at a hub, or parking at an originating airport. Every component therefore has two identities. It produces operating capacity today while creating maintenance expense, replacement risk, and another long-term capital obligation for tomorrow. A baggage belt moves luggage, a garage earns parking revenue, and a terminal collects rent. But each asset also ages, fails, and demands renewal. The complete airport is one interdependent machine, and controlling that machine requires far more capital than the visible runway, terminal, or concession price suggests. The headline concession payment looks like the price, but the operator must still fund equity, debt costs, reserves, repairs, and mandatory improvements before operations begin. Equity covers the first loss position. Acquisition debt amplifies returns and risk, while transaction expenses and working capital consume cash before passenger revenue arrives. The agreement may also require immediate terminal, utility, or airfield upgrades, turning deferred public investment into a binding private capital commitment from day one. Public airports assemble capital differently, combining retained airport revenue, revenue bonds, federal grants, passenger charges, local support, and investment from airlines or other tenants. Each funding source carries a different economic price: interest, expected return, eligible use restrictions, tenant protections, reserve requirements, or continuing public obligations for the airport. Debt can finance long-lived infrastructure efficiently, but scheduled interest and principal become fixed claims on airport cash annually, regardless of traffic or construction performance. Equity has no scheduled maturity, yet investors still expect compensation for operating, regulatory, construction, and demand risk across a very long ownership holding period. Federal grants can reduce upfront borrowing, but eligible project rules prevent management from treating those funds as general cash for unrelated commercial opportunities elsewhere. Tenant financing may deliver gates, cargo buildings, or terminal improvements, but the contributing airline or operator usually receives contractual control or economic protection in exchange. Passenger facility charges support approved safety, security, capacity, noise, or competition projects. They are project-linked funding rather than unrestricted profit available to owners today. Restricted capital can make construction affordable without making ownership richer, because the money arrives with a destination already attached before management first receives it. Timing creates another risk. Planning, environmental review, Procurement and construction can consume cash for years before the new terminal or runway produces useful capacity. During that period, the owner finances the existing airport and the future airport simultaneously, carrying old maintenance costs beside new construction obligations and interest. Expansion can also damage current economics when roads reroute, parking closes, gates become unavailable, and commercial tenants lose passenger traffic during an extended construction program. The least glamorous capital line is sustaining investment. Pavement, electrical systems, baggage controls, and utilities must be renewed so today's airport remains tomorrow's usable asset. Airport regulation creates an unusual bargain. It strengthens the asset's competitive position while limiting how freely the owner can operate, price, and distribute cash. Certification standards cover pavement, markings, lighting, firefighting, fueling safety, wildlife hazards, weather procedures, and emergency planning across the complete commercial airport operating system daily. Safety is not a discretionary expense. The airport cannot postpone critical inspections or emergency readiness simply because passenger traffic weakens and margins become uncomfortable. A restaurant can shorten hours during a slow week. A commercial airport must keep essential airfield, rescue, and maintenance capabilities available regardless of traffic. Federal assistance adds continuing obligations, including airport operation, maintenance, permitted revenue use, and access without unjust discrimination across airlines, tenants, and other eligible users. These access rules protect public service, but they also prevent the owner from favoring one user simply because that party offers the highest immediate payment. Airport revenue often must remain within the airport system or approved purposes, so accounting income cannot automatically become a dividend for the public owner. Cash may be visible on the balance sheet, yet remain committed to debt, reserves, or approved projects rather than flexible owner distributions somewhere else. Environmental review can address noise, air, water, land use, habitat, traffic, and community impact before a major airport expansion project receives permission to proceed. Local building approvals, stormwater rules, labor requirements, and ground transport regulations vary by jurisdiction, adding another layer of cost, delay, uncertainty, and difficult commercial negotiation. Those requirements create expense and uncertainty, but they also make competing airports extraordinarily difficult to build near the same population, airlines, and commercial demand. That is the regulatory bargain. The rules strengthen the airport's moat while permanently increasing the owner's operating, capital, reporting, insurance, and ongoing compliance obligations. Scarce infrastructure does not guarantee unlimited pricing power because airline agreements, federal principles, cost recovery formulas, and political oversight can still constrain airport charges materially. Cost recovery may stabilize revenue, yet higher airline charges can weaken route economics, negotiations, and traffic, leaving the owner with recovery but limited upside. The owner must separate fixed obligations, recoverable costs, restricted revenue, and genuinely controllable decisions, because compliance is not beside the business, it is the business. Long before the first passenger buys coffee, airfield teams inspect pavement, lights, signs, and safety areas while operations staff review weather, construction, and equipment status. Gate positions, aircraft stands, and work zones are allocated before traffic builds, because one early conflict can spread delays across the entire airport system. Aircraft arrive, ground crews unload bags, service cabins, move cargo, and prepare departures while airlines, contractors, and airport teams coordinate inside one shared platform. Maintenance teams continuously monitor baggage systems, electrical networks, heating, cooling, and communications, because one hidden failure can interrupt several visible revenue activities at once. Passengers move through ticketing, screening, concessions, gates, baggage claim, and ground transportation, creating value only when every connected capacity remains available together during peak periods. The airport owner does not control every participant, but the owner absorbs consequences when airlines, handlers, contractors, or infrastructure fail to coordinate effectively every day. A delayed aircraft can occupy another flight's gate, while a baggage interruption disrupts passengers for hours, even when runways remain open and technically unconstrained. Road congestion outside the terminal can create missed flights, proving that airport performance depends on access capacity as much as aircraft movement capacity each day. This is synchronized capacity. Runways move aircraft, gates hold them, baggage systems move luggage, checkpoints screen passengers, and roads deliver the demand each day. Revenue appears only when those capacities function together. So daily management focuses on reliability, recovery time, and the bottleneck currently limiting the system each hour. Backup power, spare gates, and maintenance access may look inefficient during normal operations. Yet those reserves protect revenue when unexpected disruption removes primary capacity. Resilience carries a visible cost because unused backup capacity earns little today. But eliminating every cushion can make the complete airport dangerously fragile tomorrow. Airport construction usually occurs beside live passengers, aircraft, and utilities, forcing teams to maintain security, access, and operating capacity while rebuilding critical infrastructure every day. Temporary walls, limited work windows, and rerouted passenger flows make ordinary projects expensive because the airport must remain functional throughout the entire construction program. The cheapest operating plan is not always the best. Owners must balance utilization with resilience because excessive efficiency can remove the capacity that protects revenue. The airport's most obvious revenue begins with aircraft and airlines, which pay directly for access to airfield capacity, terminal space, gates, and supporting infrastructure. Landing fees often reflect aircraft weight or an agreed rate formula, converting each movement into revenue while linking pricing to negotiated airport cost structures. Airlines may rent gates, ticket counters, offices, baggage areas, and terminal space, creating recurring payments across the complete passenger processing system they use efficiently every day. Common use charges allocate shared gates, counters, and baggage systems among several carriers, improving asset utilization while distributing operating costs across multiple airline users fairly. Additional aeronautical revenue can come from aircraft parking, apron use, cargo buildings, hangars, ground leases, and fuel-related arrangements around the complete airport platform itself. But airline payments are not simple retail prices. Use agreements can determine cost allocation, rate calculations, capital treatment, and which party carries demand risk. A cost recovery structure may stabilize airport cash flow by passing eligible expenses to airlines, while another contract gives the airport more commercial upside and downside. Higher charges can recover costs yet weaken route economics, especially when airlines can move aircraft, reduce frequencies, or choose another airport serving the region. Airline concentration changes bargaining power. One dominant carrier may create strong hub traffic while making the airport heavily dependent on that airline's network decisions. The airport owns gates, runways, and terminal capacity, but the airline ultimately decides whether aircraft, routes, and connecting passengers actually appear inside that infrastructure. A recently expanded terminal can remain physically excellent after route cuts, yet empty gates still require security, utilities, maintenance, and debt service every day. Stable contracted revenue is not automatically attractive revenue because predictable rent may have limited pricing upside while the airport still carries substantial capital obligations. At LAX in fiscal 2025, building rentals were the largest operating revenue category, followed by concessions, landing fees, and land rentals within that specific airport. That case does not define every airport, but it demonstrates that terminal rent and commercial agreements can matter more than the runway fee passengers imagine. The runway creates access, but the broader airport monetizes buildings, gates, passengers, and land, leading directly to the commercial city constructed around every traveler. Once passengers enter the airport system, nearly every movement creates a commercial opportunity, from parking and rental cars to food, retail, hotels, and advertising. Parking sells convenience, distance, and time. Premium spaces, economy lots, and reservations can produce very different yields from the same originating passenger demand profile. The owner can improve parking economics through pricing, occupancy, and product design, but empty spaces generate nothing when local travelers choose another transport option. Rental car companies pay for facilities and passenger access, while taxis, shuttles, and rideshare services may pay airport charges for reaching the same arriving customers. Hotels monetize early departures, late arrivals, and disrupted journeys, while advertising converts passenger attention into valuable inventory across terminals, roads, and nearby commercial spaces. Inside security, travelers are time-constrained, carrying luggage and separated from street competition, allowing strong sales per square foot for well-positioned airport food and retail. High tenant sales do not guarantee effortless airport profit because concession contracts must balance minimum guarantees, percentage rent, operating costs, and sustainable tenant economics. If airport rent becomes impossible, stores close, service quality falls, and vacant space produces neither commercial income nor a better passenger experience for anyone. Passenger mix changes commercial value. Originating travelers may buy parking, while connecting passengers create terminal spending without producing any parking transaction at all themselves. International travelers, short-haul commuters, families and business passengers generate different dwell times, spending patterns, and service needs inside the same terminal building each day. Airport-controlled land can support hotels, cargo facilities, logistics buildings, hangars, offices, and utility sites, creating durable revenue beyond the immediate passenger processing system itself today. Yet airport real estate is constrained by safety zones, noise contours, access requirements, aeronautical needs, and federal obligations that ordinary commercial property usually avoids. The hidden commercial platform is controlled access. Millions of people, vehicles, and businesses moving through scarce space that the airport organizes, prices, and monetizes. Better parking products, tenant mix, advertising, and land development can raise contribution without another runway. But every improvement still depends on traffic and execution. The airport can monetize access, but it cannot manufacture passenger spending forever. Captive demand remains real demand, and weak traffic eventually reaches every commercial tenant. Airport financial statements begin with operating revenue from airline fees, rents, parking, concessions, and other earned income flowing through the complete airport platform today. Restricted grants and passenger charges may fund essential projects, but those inflows cannot automatically be counted as flexible revenue available for owner distributions today. Next, subtract variable operating costs tied to traffic, including contract services, utilities, passenger processing, and other expenses that rise as activity increases each day. What remains contributes toward fixed operating costs: staffing, emergency capability, maintenance, administration, security infrastructure, and the systems required to keep the airport available continuously. After fixed operations, the airport may show strong operating cash, but interest, principal, and debt covenants still claim cash before the owner receives anything. Sustaining capital must also be funded because pavement, baggage systems, utilities, roofs, and terminal equipment wear out even when accounting profits look healthy eventually. Working capital, insurance reserves, claims reserves, and required liquidity can absorb additional cash significantly, especially when traffic weakens or construction disrupts normal airport operations. A private concessionaire may also owe taxes, fixed payments, revenue sharing, or mandatory improvements to the public sponsor before calculating distributable owner cash annually. Only after operating costs, debt, sustaining capital, reserves, and contractual obligations does estimated owner cash begin to appear at the end of the bridge. Depreciation is non-cash in the current period, but the assets being depreciated are real, physical systems that eventually require replacement and fresh capital later. Adding depreciation back may improve an EBITDA-style metric, yet that adjustment does not repair pavement, replace baggage equipment, or fund future airport resilience reliably. At LAX in fiscal 2025, operating revenue exceeded $2 billion publicly, illustrating the impressive scale that can attract attention before obligations are examined. The same fiscal year included more than $1 billion of operating expense before depreciation and roughly $800 million of depreciation and amortization. Large reported cash balances can also be restricted for debt, passenger charge projects, or capital programs, so visible liquidity is not identical to owner-controlled cash. Whenever someone says an airport makes billions, ask for the complete bridge from revenue through expenses, debt, renewal, and restrictions to actual owner cash. Labor is a major airport cost because operations, maintenance, engineering, emergency response, and administration must cover long hours across a complex regulated facility every day. Utilities remain substantial because terminals, baggage equipment, lighting, data systems, security infrastructure, and airfield technology consume energy even when every gate is not full. Maintenance extends beyond visible repairs, covering pavement, bridges, garages, roofs, drainage, elevators, escalators, and electrical systems that age on different replacement schedules throughout operations. Weather changes the cost stack by location, with snow, ice, heat, storms, flooding, and wildlife hazards demanding specialized equipment, staffing, and preparedness year-round. Insurance, claims, police, fire, and rescue capabilities add another fixed layer because an airport carries operational risks far beyond those of an ordinary office complex. Downtime creates a second cost beyond repair itself because system failure can delay flights, increase labor, reduce capacity, and damage airline relationships simultaneously for owners. A broken baggage conveyor may require manual handling, extra staff, and delayed departures, turning one mechanical problem into multiple operating and revenue consequences quickly. A closed taxiway can reduce aircraft throughput while crews repair it, making the economic loss larger than the direct maintenance invoice alone for owners. This creates a dangerous temptation. Defer maintenance, improve near-term cash, and hope the asset continues working until another management team inherits the obligation later. For a while, deferred maintenance can resemble efficiency because spending falls while revenue continues, allowing reported cash performance to improve without genuine operational progress. Then failure arrives. Emergency work costs more. Capacity disappears and the owner pays both the repair bill and the revenue consequence at once financially. Deferred maintenance can therefore create a loop. Reliability falls, disruptions rise, emergency repairs expand, and available cash becomes even harder to protect over time. The Federal Airport Plan identified roughly $67.5 billion of eligible development needs for 2025 through 2029, showing continuing infrastructure demand. Airports are never truly finished assets. They are permanent capital programs where passengers, aircraft, and commercial activity continue moving through the construction environment daily. The hidden liability is the promise to keep an aging, regulated network continuously available, regardless of traffic weakness, political pressure, or inconvenient equipment failure. Debt can finance infrastructure that lasts for decades, but every borrowed dollar converts part of the airport's future operating cash into a scheduled financial obligation. Revenue bonds are typically supported by airport revenues, so lenders study traffic, airline agreements, reserves, construction plans, and the durability of the complete revenue system. Interest and principal arrive on fixed schedules, even when passenger volumes, parking demand, concessions, or airline activity weaken unexpectedly during a difficult operating year. Debt covenants may require minimum coverage, liquidity, and reserve levels, limiting distributions and forcing management to protect lenders before pursuing discretionary commercial opportunities elsewhere. Debt service reserves provide temporary protection, but they are restricted buffers rather than free owner cash, and using them can signal that normal operations are under pressure. Construction debt becomes especially dangerous when projects run late because interest accumulates before the new terminal, gate, or runway produces capacity and revenue for owners. Refinancing adds another risk when debt matures before the asset's economics fully stabilize, leaving the owner exposed to future credit conditions, rates, and lender appetite. A structure that looks affordable under today's assumptions can become fragile after higher financing costs, weaker traffic, or additional capital needs compress the remaining cash cushion. The central mismatch is simple. Airport revenue changes with traffic and contracts, while debt service remains comparatively fixed and continues claiming cash through every downturn. High leverage also reduces operating flexibility because management may postpone maintenance, raise charges, cut commercial investment, or preserve cash when the airport actually needs resilience. Some airline agreements can recover eligible debt-related costs through rates, but higher charges may weaken route economics and transfer financial stress into future traffic decisions. That makes the monopoly illusion dangerous. Scarce infrastructure may protect the airport from new competitors without protecting its balance sheet from excessive leverage or weak demand. Debt works best when repayment timing, asset life, and revenue durability align, leaving enough liquidity for maintenance, disruption, and the next unavoidable capital program. A responsible owner therefore carefully stress tests traffic, rates, operating costs, project delays, refinancing, and reserve use together, rather than evaluating each debt assumption separately. The airport may control scarce land and access, yet debt determines how much economic freedom remains. Next, the analysis turns toward margin hidden inside operations. The airport's hidden margin rarely comes from one dramatic fee. It comes from improving yield, utilization, and cost control across assets already built and operating. Parking margin improves when pricing matches convenience, duration, and demand, allowing premium, economy, and reserve products to earn more from the same traveler base. Maximizing occupancy is not always optimal. A full garage sold too cheaply can produce less contribution than slightly lower occupancy at a better yield. Concession economics improve through tenant mix, placement, and contract design, balancing minimum guarantees with percentage rent so stores remain productive, attractive, and financially sustainable. Commercial land creates another margin layer when hotels, logistics, offices, or hangars generate durable rent without requiring another runway or an entirely new terminal. Existing gates, counters, and baggage systems can support more activity when schedules, common use allocation, and turnaround discipline reduce idle time between users during peaks. Energy efficiency hides inside utility systems, where better controls, equipment, and maintenance reduce recurring costs without changing passenger volumes or headline airport charges directly. Preventive maintenance can create margin by avoiding emergency work and downtime, converting planned expense today into fewer disruptions and more reliable capacity tomorrow for owners. Better passenger flow information can redirect people toward shorter queues, open concessions, and available ground transport, improving experience while lifting commercial conversion across the terminal. Airline coordination can increase gate and runway utilization when schedules, turns, and shared facilities fit together, creating more productive capacity before new construction becomes necessary. Labor productivity improves when operations, maintenance, and commercial teams share information, preventing duplicated work and allowing scarce staff to solve the highest value problem first. These gains are not free cash. Pricing systems, training, equipment, and tenant upgrades often require investment before better contribution appears in the owner's financial bridge. Owners should clearly separate high control levers like parking and energy from medium control levers like utilization, and low control forces like airline networks and passenger demand. Small improvements compound because parking, concessions, land, utilization, and energy affect different parts of the same platform, widening contribution without depending on one heroic assumption. But optimization has a boundary. Push prices, labor, maintenance, or tenants too hard, and hidden margin can quietly become the next owner trap instead. The owner trap begins when a profitable-looking airport produces visible cash. Yet contracts, reserves, debt, and capital duties prevent that cash from becoming freely usable. Restricted cash can sit beside the owner for years, creating balance sheet comfort while remaining unavailable for distributions, unrelated investments, or unexpected operating choices today. Peak traffic can also mislead investors because facilities designed around holiday surges may appear highly utilized while producing weaker economics across ordinary weeks overall. Airline concentration turns growth into dependence when one carrier supplies traffic, rents, and connections, but can still change schedules faster than the airport changes infrastructure. Deferred capital makes current cash look stronger by shifting runway, terminal, baggage, and utility renewal into future periods where the eventual bill may be larger. A concession can hide a handback obligation, requiring assets to meet specified condition standards when the contract ends, regardless of remaining investor appetite or cash. Contract duration becomes dangerous when the remaining term is shorter than the payback period for required improvements, leaving the operator financing value another party inherits. Aggressive parking and tenant pricing can widen margin briefly, then push travelers toward alternatives, weaken store economics, and reduce the commercial platform's long-term contribution. Cutting labor too far may lower payroll while increasing queues, downtime, safety pressure, and recovery time, converting apparent efficiency into a larger operating liability. A dominant airline can support excellent current economics, yet route cuts, bankruptcy, or network restructuring can remove demand while the airport keeps its fixed obligations. Political oversight can prevent rapid price increases, service reductions, or asset sales, so management may face weakening cash without access to ordinary private company responses. Expansion creates another trap when optimistic traffic forecasts justify new capacity, but delayed demand leaves debt, utilities, maintenance, and staffing attached to underused infrastructure. These pressures form a failure engine. Weaker cash encourages deferral and aggressive pricing, which reduce reliability and demand, creating even weaker cash afterward again. The warning signs appear early: restricted liquidity, rising deferred capital, concentrated airline exposure, peak-dependent traffic, and a contract term shorter than required investment recovery. Before judging the owner, the airport must be stress-tested as one system, combining traffic, pricing, costs, debt, capital, reserves, and contractual exit obligations together. Stress testing begins with an illustrative medium hub model, not an industry average, using 5 million annual enplanements to connect traffic clearly with airport economics. The illustrative base case assumes revenue of $54.35 per enplanement, creating roughly $272 million of annual revenue. Variable operating expense is modeled at $11 per enplanement, while fixed cash operating expense remains $80 million regardless of traffic throughout the year. At 5 million enplanements, variable expense reaches $55 million, producing total cash operating expense of $135 million in the model. That leaves approximately $137 million before financing, sustaining capital, and reserve additions in this illustrative base case for the airport annually. After $91 million of debt service, $20 million of sustaining capital, and $10 million of reserve funding, residual owner cash is about $16 million. The model reaches break-even near 4.64 million enplanements, where traffic contribution finally covers fixed operations, debt service, sustaining capital, and reserves. In the good scenario, stronger traffic and contribution produce roughly $47 million of positive residual cash after operating, financing, and capital obligations annually. In the downside scenario, weaker traffic and revenue turn residual cash negative by roughly $37 million before any emergency response or refinancing action. Under stress, deeper traffic weakness and limited cost flexibility create an illustrative cash deficit approaching $88 million after required obligations are paid annually. The decline is nonlinear because fixed operations, debt service, and sustaining capital do not fall as quickly as passenger-driven revenue and contribution during downturns. Management can improve parking yield, tenant mix, utilization, and energy efficiency, but those controllable levers alone cannot fully replace missing passengers or airline service. Liquidity determines survival between scenarios because an airport can remain economically viable over decades while still facing a severe short-term cash shortage at times. The responsible owner protects reserves, stages capital, monitors break-even traffic, and prepares financing responses before downside conditions force expensive emergency decisions to become unavoidable. The stress test does not identify a perfect owner. It reveals which owner has enough capital, discipline, and patience to carry this regulated infrastructure responsibly. The final ownership question is not who can buy an airport, but who can carry its capital, operating, regulatory, and public service obligations for decades. A public owner can accept long investment horizons, preserve broad access, and reinvest airport revenue without requiring every decision to maximize immediate, near-term distributions. But public ownership can also face political cycles, procurement delays, and fragmented accountability, allowing necessary pricing, maintenance, or development decisions to arrive too slowly. A private operator can bring commercial focus, operating discipline, specialized procurement, and clearer performance incentives to parking, concessions, maintenance, passenger service, and asset utilization. Private control becomes dangerous when leverage, return pressure, or a short contract horizon encourage underinvestment, aggressive pricing, delayed renewal, or deferral before eventual handback. Airlines understand schedules and passenger flows, but an airline-centered owner may favor its own network while increasing concentration risk for the wider airport system. A hybrid structure can preserve public title while assigning operating rights, capital duties, and performance standards to a private partner through a long contract. Whatever the structure, owners must distinguish high control decisions from medium control negotiations and low control forces such as weather, airline networks, regional demand, and interest rates. The suitable owner needs capital depth, unrestricted liquidity, and refinancing capacity, because downturns in mandatory projects can demand cash before normal airport economics recover. That owner also needs governance, engineering, operations, and commercial expertise capable of coordinating one regulated system rather than optimizing isolated departments separately over time. A responsible owner funds maintenance, reserves, and renewal before treating residual cash as distributable, protecting the airport's future usefulness from today's immediate financial pressure. Contracts must clearly allocate revenue rights, capital duties, performance standards, default remedies, and handback condition, so neither public nor private parties misunderstand the bargain. The choice is not simply public versus private. It is whether control, incentives, funding, and long-term obligations sit with parties able to manage them. There is no universal best owner. The best structure is the one that survives stress, preserves service, and keeps capital responsibility aligned with control.